If you are a project manager, you must master Google's Gemini and all its capabilities in other applications. I've been managing IT projects for over 15 years already, and here's the truth. If I had to pay for a project management tool from my own pocket, I wouldn't go for Claude or ChatGPT. I would go with the Google's Gemini, because for $20 you get so much more than other tools provide. That's why in this video I'll show you around Gemini's chat, its projects, and all other applications that are empowered by Gemini models. Okay, here we go. That's the main interface. As you can see, you have the typical layout where you have new chat, you can search for chats, you can specifically go into this area to create images, videos, and you have library where you have the storage of all generated items throughout your work in Gemini. And you have gems, which are literally the projects as you see them in ChatGPT or in Claude. We'll talk about projects and gems in a minute, but let's start with the chat interface. First, at the top you have the temporary chat button, so it allows you to chat with Gemini and it won't be saved for a prolonged period of time. Then you have your general input where you type your prompts. Then you have a model selection, and here you just see the three main models: Flash for quick answers, Thinking for more complex tasks, and 3.1 Pro for coding and math. In most cases, I recommend that you stay with default Thinking model here. Then, as always, you have the microphone, and that's because you want to dictate your prompts. Typing is so outdated today. AI models don't really care about your very structured prompts. It's more important to provide more context about what you want to achieve, how you want to achieve. So typing is less efficient than talking. And the main button here is this plus sign. Here you can upload files from your computer, add them from Drive, and here's an important part. You can also connect your Notebook LM notebooks to this chat. And if you don't know what a Notebook LM is, I'll leave you a link in the description. It's yet another powerful tool from Google that allows you to create notebooks full of sources about a specific topic or knowledge domain. So all of these options allow you to add sources and information to your prompt. Likewise, you have other set of buttons here where you select the mode. So for example, if you want to create an image, you can do so by selecting an image and then writing a prompt here, which will allow you to use the Banana 2 model to generate images. In the same way, you can switch to video creation mode, and what's more important from project management perspective is the Canvas mode. Here, Canvas is probably the most exciting feature for me that I lack in Claude and other AI chatbots, because it allows you to edit the outputs right away. So let me give you an example. Write a short email explaining to my stakeholders the machine learning concepts in simple language. As you can see, the output appears in the editor, where I can continue working with this text either manually or with AI. For example, I can select this and ask Gemini, please extend this metaphor with more details. And Gemini updated the email with the metaphor across all the terms. Likewise, you can use these sliders to change the length of the whole copy. If you want to make it shorter, you can do so by just one click. And with Canvas, you can do so much more. You can create the whole websites in the Canvas, whole applications, or slide decks. And we'll discuss it in a minute. Before that, I want to go back and continue our discussion with the normal chats. And after you mastered your chat interface, you can use it for brainstorming, for research, all the good things that you do with AI chatbot. After that, you should go and start creating gems. Gems are like projects in Claude or ChatGPT. Here you want to maintain your repeatable work. So let me give you just two examples or two use cases on how to use gems. Let's start by clicking New Gem. Here you will see that you need to fill out the name, description, and the instructions. So for this case, delivery management mentor. So in this case, we're creating a gem which will have the same identity across multiple charts. And I'll use my custom prompt here as instruction, where I will say, hey, you should act as my personal advisor, you are head of delivery in IT company, and you have these experiences, you are brutally honest with me, and your mission is to do these things, basically to help me create a delivery system. You will call out my blind spots, and you will basically act as my mentor, not just as a friendly chat. You can also add some default tools. In this case, we don't need tools like creating images or videos, but you can already predict that you may create a project where you will just create images, for example, for your professional presentations, which should be like office setup, corporate world, and so on. And likewise, it can be used in Canvas or for deep research, but in this case, it's just for conversations. And you can add your files and Google Drive documents here so that this chart or all these charts will have the access to the same information. Or you can add the notebook from Notebook LM. And this is a great place for a side note. So if you use any AI tool for project management, you need a project context file. This is a file that you will attach to any prompt that explains all the details about your project. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the description. There is a link to my AI prompt pack. It's totally free. You'll find the prompt 0 there. You can copy and paste it in Gemini or ChatGPT, and the AI will walk you through several questions to collect that project information. So do it once and then add that document to any prompt about your project in any tool. Alright, with that said, we don't need documents here. Again, we want to keep this as a mentor, so it will be more on the conversational side. You can test your prompts here by using this preview section, but in this case, we'll just save. Alright, it's ready to use, we can start chatting. And now, whenever I start asking something, how do I implement Scrum in a new team? And right away you can see that the answer is not your typical ChatGPT or Gemini answer. It's very hardcore. Hey, implementing Scrum is a rookie trap. It's not about that, so be mindful about the common pitfalls. So now when you go to the gems, this gem basically will act always as that mentor. So you don't need to copy paste that prompt again and again. And all your charts will be collected under this gem. So this is something that I call the identity gem. Let's create a task-driven gem as well. So for the name, it will be user story writer. This gem converts transcripts into user stories. Here I will use one of the prompts that I actually use on daily basis running IT projects. So this is how I write user stories these days. It has the typical structure that I recommend, role and objective, some guidelines, so everything broken down with the formats, with the terminology. For example, in this case, this prompt comes from actual work where I almost always need few elements on the UI in every feature, like some cancel actions and warnings and maybe some delete remove warnings. They appear everywhere. So that's why I embed them into this prompt. So every user story has at least a think about, do we need those actions here? So for example, in this case, it might be useful to use Canvas so you can edit user stories right away without leaving the Gemini chat interface. And in this specific case, I would strongly recommend using the project context file because AI needs this context about your product, about your features, and who is the target audience for all these user stories. And again, we can save this and start chat. And here's the whole idea of all these gems. You basically just add a file from your Google Drive, like your Gemini notes, or you copy-paste a raw text of you speaking and click this button, submit button, and it will spit out the user stories. No additional prompting needed. So if you are a project manager and you perform a certain task at least once a week, it's worth thinking about creating a gem for that task. So think about gems for writing user stories, writing emails, writing progress reports, maybe even a project charter from time to time. Unfortunately, that's where most project managers end up with Gemini, thinking that's all it has. But it has so much more, it's just under the hood. So let's try something fancy. We'll go with Canvas and I'll ask it, I need an application that I can use during sprint plannings to do planning poker. I should be able to add people on my side and fill out their scores of their votes. And then when the voting is done, when all the votes are cast, I want you to give me an average of the estimate. So as you can see, Gemini started to think about the application, the tool that you wanted it to create. It understands the context pretty much, and it will take a few minutes, but it will construct a tool for you right here. All right, here you have it. So we can try out and see what it does. Oh, it has some sound effects as well. It does some calculations and so on. I understand it's not the most useful application in this case, we want to share it, but think about all the possible calculators or some input-output things that you can create here as an application. So it may look like a toy that you play around, but if you start thinking creatively about the work that you do on a daily basis, you may find useful applications for tools that were never created or tools that cost a lot of money, where you may create it for yourself, tailored to your process, tailored to your personal productivity. All at the fingertips. All you need to do is to write a prompt. All right, but that's not all what we can do here, and maybe let's get back to our previous conversation where we wrote an email about machine learning. I think that visual representation of this information might be more useful. That's why, could you please create a slide deck based on this email so that I can share with my stakeholders a visual representation of this information. All right, here you have it, slide deck with explanation in slides with some visual representations and so on. It might not look impressive right here, right now, but this is just a starting point, and that's where the power of Gemini comes through. Now that I have a starting point, I can actually export it into slides, and it will create slides for me in Google Slides. So now we can open slides and continue working here. I'll be honest here, I don't use this workflow too often, because it's mostly useful when you need to create a slide deck on a random topic very quickly, and you don't have time to do the research separately, collect facts, and then put them on slide deck. But if you do a lot of consulting, presentations, and explanations type of stakeholder meetings, that's a game changer. In my cases, I usually use just this button. I click enhance this slide that I put together from my notes and from my presentations and let it polish it up. It still feels AI-ish, but it definitely looks better than the initial version, so we can replace it here. Unfortunately, as of today, I think that slides and slide decks are the weakest point of AI models across the board, so it's not the thing where I would invest a lot of time. Instead, let's go to Google Sheets and we'll create a new sheet. So here you also have the Gemini integration. So if you use this part on the right side, you can create the whole spreadsheets from scratch by AI. So for example, create a Gantt chart for my software development project. I want you to cover the next 3 months. As a starting point, use the standard SDLC phases as the main breakdown. Make the Gantt chart interactive. Again, it will collect the information, it will do the thinking, and it will take probably a minute or two for it to create. As you can see, it did a lot of thinking about how to do it, and it created a plan with step-by-step implementation, and you need to approve it. It actually took a few minutes to finalize the chart, but here you have it, and it looks pretty good for a starting point. So let's give it a try. Oh, as you can see, it's even interactive, so if you update dates, it updates the Gantt chart. Previously, it would have taken you several hours to create such an interactive Gantt chart inside Excel or Google Sheets. And here we could provide the whole spreadsheet with tasks and start and end dates from the start and generate the actual Gantt chart for us. And again, you can continue talking with Gemini through this chart and update the Gantt chart itself, but likewise, Gemini is available in the cells. Let me try to illustrate it right here. So we'll insert a column. So if you start typing a formula, you have AI formula inside the cell. And we can write a prompt. Calculate the duration based on the two dates, and then we'll provide it a range here. And it will do one of two things. It will either create a formula for you in that cell, or it will use LLM to find out the answer. So in this case, it found the useful formula for days, and then you can just use it across all the rows. By the way, this AI formula has an unobvious application. Imagine that you need to test the prompt for your application or product, and you don't have any other means. So you can reliably test it here by entering the prompt using your dataset. Let's say about 1000 rows will still be feasible inside spreadsheets. Obviously not the cleanest way, but very cheap and quick way to test your prompt on a larger scale. Okay, and obviously you can use Gemini inside Google Docs. And here you have the same chat interface where you can write a prompt to generate the first draft of whatever you need. But in this case, I want to show you that you can click this More Options button, and you can use your gems from within Google Docs. And we can prompt it. Now, as you can see, gems are even more powerful than any other projects in Claude or ChatGPT. So now you have gems aligned to the work you perform, whether it's text-based, whether it's Excel and data or spreadsheets. And obviously we can't talk about Gemini without going into Gmail. In Gmail, again, you have the same button here, and you can prompt it to ask any email that you have here. It will find the instances where you, for example, talked about a feature or you made a commitment to deliver on certain date or time. You can use gems here as well, so you can have a email writing guide for your mentor to check your emails. Or you can have a gem that will analyze your today's emails and give you a summary and highlight what is important and what's not, and so on. But here I want to show you yet another thing that comes from just one subscription for a chatbot. This is the Studio by Google, and it allows you to connect different tools and run simple automated workflows through Google Drive, Gmail, and some other tools. And if you go to do more in Studio, and Studio comes with some pre-built templates that you can use for emails, for meetings. So for example, you can send the summaries and action items after meetings into the chat, so you have them at hand. Or you can, for example, save all the attachments into the Google Drive right away. You can also build them with AI or start from scratch and build the whole process yourself. So as a starter, for example, you want to check only specific email from a specific person, or if it has some words in it, and after that you can take an action. Right away, notice that you can again use gems inside this automation. Or for example, you can extract some information and then maybe put it in some spreadsheet as a row. So basically you are limited by your imagination here, because you can break down complex workflows into simple step-by-step processes that you can automate with this studio. So as you can see, Gemini comes with so many tools under just one subscription. It's worth much more than Claude subscription on its own or ChatGPT subscription. And I have a feeling that Google will take over a market share of these corporate tools from Microsoft, because Microsoft at this point is not that impressive. But here's the real problem. And I've taught hundreds of project managers, and all of them said the same thing to me recently, that, hey, I tried AI, it doesn't work for my projects. AI is just a tool, like Jira, like Microsoft project before that. It does what you ask it to do. If your project management approach is chaotic and you don't have repeatable workflows in it, then no AI tool will ever help you. That's why today it's even more critical to develop the hard skills of project management, your ability to build repeatable project management processes. That's why I recommend that you watch this video next, where I explain the whole project management approach from start to finish. Click the video now, I am waiting for you there.